Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Angela and I find my paradise through reading. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna go over all of the books that I read in May, which weren't a whole lot, but it's way more than I expected to be reading in May. I figured May was gonna be a very light reading month, being that knew I was gonna spend a lot of time outside getting my garden established and doing my winter, spring cleanup. And getting the outdoors ready for hanging out. But I did get a lot of books in, 2, 4, 6. I have 6 books here. And then I did 2 audiobooks. So let's talk about the 2 audiobooks first. The first one I'm gonna talk about is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. Okay, so I listened to that. I heard a lot of great things about it. Oh, maybe it's because it was the audiobook, but I wasn't that into it. Basically, Remarkably Bright Creatures is about this old lady. She's like in her 70s. Her name is Tova, and she works at an aquarium as the nighttime like cleaning lady. And so she befriends an octopus whose name is Marcellus. And Marcellus is really intelligent. And so some parts of the story are from her perspective, and there are some chapters that are from his perspective. So there's also, basically, she lost her husband some years ago to cancer. She also lost her son when he was 18 years old. Bad accident at sea. Something happened. She just didn't even know what happened to him, honestly. And then there's a man who's looking for his dad. So there's just like all this stuff going on. I liked the octopus character, Marcellus. I liked Tova. She was so sweet, so dear. Loved the little old lady. Couldn't get enough of her. She was just so wonderful and just so hurt and just so, she was just so much. She was an amazing character. However, the guy who was looking for his dad, he's like 30 years old. And I don't know if the author did this on purpose, but he sounded like a whiny teenage rebellious little boy, like a teenage boy. So I kept getting thrown off because I didn't see him as like a guy in his 30s or a 30-year-old man. You know, it was like, oh, it's not my fault. How am I supposed to know? And like he meets this woman who is like 32 years old, and he just acts completely shocked, like, oh, you have a kid? She's not 18 years old. She's 32 years old. So I didn't like him. I really didn't like him. And I just felt like he was just rude. He was disrespectful, especially to this guy, Ethan, who was this little old Irish man who was like really helping him out big time. He really helped this guy out, and he was just so rude and disrespectful to him. The lady that he met, who, you know, he was like interested in or whatever, like he was, of course, attracted to her right away because she was pretty or whatever, but she was rude as all heck. I mean, on sight, first time she meets him, she tells him, like, basically telling him he looks like a bum, that he smells like piss. I mean, she was just straight up rude. And so I don't care later on how things turned out. I didn't like her. And, you know, later on she wrote it off, you know, like, oh, I was having a bad day or whatever. And I don't care that she ended up being nice to him afterwards. Whatever. I don't know. There's just no excuse for it. And how low is his self-esteem that he would go pursuing her, knowing that she was just like, to me, yeah, no. I wasn't digging her. I'm sorry. Ugh. You have no excuse to treat people like that, and someone you don't know telling them they look gross and just ugh. So I was put off by his character and hers. So I mean, I gave the book like 3 stars. I did, I was rooting for Tova, basically. Tova and Marcellus. That's who I was invested in. He irritated me, as did she. And there was just a lot of things that just threw me off. One, they kept talking about the eye of this octopus. Oh, his eye winked at me. Great Pacific octopus, or a giant Pacific octopus, has 2 eyes. So the author kept writing it in a way that made it seem like he was one-eyed, and he wasn't. Shouldn't be. Unless he lost an eye. Yeah, he has 2 eyes. So that threw me off. And the other thing was, like, he's looking for his dad. He ends up in this small town where everybody knows everybody and everybody's got a history. So he's not even asking questions. He has, like, this proof, this evidence of, like, why he thinks his dad, is who he is or whatever. And he's not sharing that information with anybody. He's not asking anybody questions. And so it was just really drawn out and didn't have to be. So I'll drop that to a 2-star. I'm sorry, Tova and Marcellus. It wasn't my thing. I don't know. Not that excited about it. And then the second audiobook that I listened to was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I gave that like 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. But again, it was kind of like that miscommunication. Like, how are you with someone for years and then have like this big misunderstanding or miscommunication? Nobody's really telling each other anything. And so that kind of threw me off. I was just like, obviously, and I know sometimes, it's difficult, to communicate when you're feeling strongly about something, or you're just not sure, you're scared, or you're worried, but come on, it was like so obvious, that the two were so crazy about each other, and it was just like they were so held up. But no, I did enjoy it. Recommend. I mean, it wasn't on my greatest things. It's kind of a pretty forgettable story. So yeah, that was the other audiobook that I listened to. All right, now for my hard books. I read Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is a book that I heard a lot about. And this is about this woman who starts working in a convenience store. And I think she was fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, fresh out of high school, I forget. But she starts working there part-time, and that just seemed to be her thing. And here she is, like in her 30s or whatever, and still working in this convenience store. She loves it. So basically it wasn't what I thought it was going to be about. So I was a little disappointed. I was excited because I thought this was a book about a woman who was just happy to be working in a convenience store, and no matter what her parents and her family and her friends thinking, like, she never even had a boyfriend, right? Like, she just was happy working in a convenience store, and that was her life. So I thought this was about that. However, how do I say this without, it is what it is. She was kind of weird. And it's not just like a regular person who's just happy having a simple job and not chasing, bigger, better things and status and money and, an extravagant lifestyle or anything. She was like, she didn't process emotions like normal people. She didn't relate to people. Like, she was always trying to take clues on like how she should interact with people given certain situations and try to seem normal, and was like pretending like she was almost like she didn't have feelings or emotions, and she didn't understand why she would want a boyfriend or a husband, or anything. I don't know. So I was kind of a little disappointed because I just wanted a book about like, hey, it's okay to want a very simple life, a very simple job, and to just find something you're really good at and you're comfortable doing and just being content. Whereas this was like, it was kind of like that, but more along the lines of like, she was just bizarre. And so it kind of made me feel like, I don't know, like, it just, I guess it kind of magnified it for me that like, oh, you have to be kind of weird if you want to spend the rest of your life working in a convenience store. I don't know. But I did like a lot of parts of it. I loved how she connected with the store and with the sounds and with the routine and knowing what was going on in the neighborhood at certain times, certain seasons, and what would sell and how she would organize things. I thought that was cool. And I really, really liked that part of it. So I don't know. Not what I thought it was. It was still pretty decent. Okay. Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. Okay. If you guys have been following my channel at all, you know that I've been reading these vampire chronicles. Is that what they're called? Anyways, but this is book 3. So I read the Interview with the Vampire Lestat, and then Queen of the Damned, and this was the best one of the 3 so far. There was so much that happened here. So I don't even know how to like how to talk about it without, because you kind of I don't know. This book was crazy. It was pretty bloody. It kind of left off where the vampire Lestat left off, and I thought this was just basically gonna be from this queen, the queen's point of view, but basically a lot of it was from the vampire Lestat's point of view. But there's other things. There was so much mystery in this book where you're just like, you're maybe 3/4 of the book way in and you're still trying to figure out what the heck is going on. You know, why are these vampires being like killed and going up in flames all over the world? Why is everyone, all these vampires dreaming of these redheaded twins? What's going on? And what's going on, like what were these redheaded twins doing? Because the dreams were just so weird and creepy. I don't know, there was so much going on in here. I'm really excited to go on to the 4th book. I forget what the 4th book is. Maybe it's Prince Lestat. But I'm definitely going to keep going with this series. I think it's really interesting and a lot of fun. Her writing is great. She's a really great writer. All right. Then we read L'étranger, Albert Camus. So The Stranger by Albert Camus. I read this in French. I also read it in English. So I've been working on this for the last couple months, and I don't know if you can see. Oh my goodness. This was the first full novel that I read in French. It was a struggle at first, but it definitely picked up the pace once I had the book in English and I was able to cross-reference it and read one chapter in English and one chapter in French at a time. So it all came together. Did I like this book? No. Basically, we're following this guy who, again, he doesn't seem to have like feelings, like real feelings. It starts off with his mother's death, and he doesn't even shed a tear. He's just like really weird about it. And then he meets this woman who becomes his girlfriend, and she's talking about marriage, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, if that's what you want, it doesn't matter one way or the other. And she's like, oh, don't you love me? He's like, no, not really, but you know, we can get married. I mean, he's just bizarre. And he commits a crime, he kills somebody, and no feelings, no intense feelings. He just doesn't seem to fully connect things. So it reminded me a lot of that other lady from the convenience store woman. Like, I don't know. So I was kind of disappointed. I wish that the first full book that I read in French would have been a lot more fun. It was kind of painful at times to get through, and this is like a classic. This is like a major classic, but maybe it just went way over my head. I wasn't interested in it. I really wasn't, but I finished it. It helped me. I learned a lot with my French and vocabulary, so it wasn't a loss. So that's that. Then I read The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. Exupery? I don't know. The Little Prince. This is the English one. I have it also in French. I'm going to be reading it in French during the month of June. But I wanted to read it in English first to see what this was about. Heard a lot of good things about it. Not that impressed. There were some cute, little things here and there. Overall, I don't think it was mind-blowing. Like, I read it in a day. It's a pretty short book. It's like 80 pages, has some illustrations. It was cute. I will read it in French. Will I ever read it again? Probably not. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe with The Stranger, maybe it just went way over my head. But that's right that. Oh, good Lord. Okay. A Cinco pies de ti. I finished this. This is 5 Feet Apart by Rachael Lippincott. Okay. Okay, first of all, I saw this movie in English years ago, and it was pretty good. So this is the first full novel in Spanish that I've ever read. All I can say is, okay, I saw the movie. I know how it ends. I was bawling my eyes out at the end of this book. Like, I was just bawling my eyes out. But I wanted to show quickly just the progress of like how I started and like how it started and how it went. Okay, so this is like a typical page. I would underline everything as I was going through it. Then I would like highlight words like I didn't know, and I would look them up, and I would write the translation there. So to get through one page, I mean, there was a lot of stopping and looking up. So that's how it pretty much was in the beginning. And next thing you know, by the end, like, look at this. I was just flying through this book because the more I read, the more comfortable, the more I memorized some of the vocabulary, because a lot of the words were used over and over again, and then I wouldn't have to keep looking up these same words. Oh, this was good. This was good. So this is about Stella, who is like 18 years old. She's got cystic fibrosis. Her lungs are really weak. They're at like 35% capacity. She's in the hospital. It's senior year. Her best friends are going on the senior trip to Los Cabos. And she's been pretty much in and out of this hospital since she was 6 years old, I think. And then another patient in her same hall, Poe, is her best friend. He's been in that same hospital as well since he was little. So they've been friends, though they can't, they have to stay 6 feet apart so they don't cross-contaminate each other. She's waiting for, they're both doing like this experimental drug process to see if it helps at all, if it's effective or not. And she's on a list for a lung transplant. Here comes a new patient. His name is Will. He's about to turn 18, and you know, star-crossed lovers, I guess, because he also has cystic fibrosis, and they can't be, they have to stay 6 feet apart. They fall in love. His strain, or his version of it, can actually kill her. And he's not even eligible for a lung transplant, so there's nothing that is going to help this kid. And so it's critical that they stay apart, because if she gets cross-contaminated, then she's not even going to be eligible for a lung transplant either, and they're just gonna die. So it was just such a wonderful and sweet and sad story, because it's like, how do you have a relationship and be in love with someone and you can't ever touch this person ever, or be closer, than 6 feet. So sad. It was so good. I'm so glad this was the first book I read in Spanish. It was cool. And it just really excites me that, I don't know, I'm just so excited that I read a book in French, I read a book in Spanish, and I am definitely putting that into my monthly routine. I do want to have one book in French and one book in Spanish every month in my TBR. It really, really helped me tremendously with my language studies. Okay, last book. Now, if you saw my last video, you know how much I love this book, The City of Dreaming Books by Walter Moers. Look, like I'm already tearing up. I can't. This book, I have not been able to stop thinking about this book. I'm just still so stunned at how marvelous and flawless and crazy amazing this book was. Like, I have no words for it. My dog's Storm Runner Dognado. You're gross. Sorry. I don't know if you hear her in the background, but you just hear her licking herself. But it's, it is a bit of a chonker. If you want to know more about it, you can watch my last video, where I dedicated the whole video just to this book. I mean, this book blew every book ever out of the water for me, I think. This is passing The Prairie of the Orange Tree, which I was so, just obsessed with. No, my new obsession. And I'm so going to continue with his books. I'm going to try to read anything and everything he published in English. He's German, I think, and all of his works obviously originally in German. So, and not all of his works have been translated to English. Lucky for me, The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear is in English. And so I already have that. And I just want to build a shrine for his works, for this book. I just want to put it in a beautiful glass case, because this was awesome. This was everything I could want in a book. And I feel like one of the characters, oh my gosh, Optimus Yarnspinner's authorial godfather read this manuscript. This author sent this man his manuscript to read, and he was so overwhelmed by how wonderful this writing was, and how wonderful this, he didn't want to write, anything else. He didn't want to read anything else. Nothing else was going to compare. He couldn't get this manuscript out of his mind. And that's kind of how I feel with this book. It's funny. I'm always thinking about it, and I love it so much. I can't believe this book and how well it was written and how brilliant and original, and it's everything. It's everything. Anyways, I'm gonna leave this video off at this point. So those are all the books that I read during the month of May 2023. Back there, this other stack, I'm working on my June TBR. Let me just share that. This is what I'm thinking. Let's just do this quick. Look, The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear, by Walter Moers. And what it says equal parts J.K. Rowling, Douglas Adams, and Shel Silverstein. So I am absolutely excited, especially after reading the City of Dreaming books. I'm all about this. I am all about it. So that I'm gonna take my time with. I have A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley Cole. This was given to me as a gift. I think it's about werewolves, vampires, soulmates. I don't know. We'll find out. Then my Spanish book of the month. I got this at the library's annual book sale, and this is El Regalo by Daniel Steele, The Gift. So this is going to be my Spanish book for the month. Then I have Le Petit Prince en français. So just like I said, I'm going to be reading this in French for the month of June. I have A Man Called Ova by Frederick Bachman. I got a box of tissues ready for this one. Brave New World Revisited by Aldous Huxley. I read A Brave New World in January or December. And this is a continuation, I think, or an update or something. So I wanted to see what that was about. Not a big one, so it looks like a quick read. A Dog Year by John Katz. Tissues for that one. Just looking at that dog's face, I just already, come on, I'm gonna cry. The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. Look at that cover. Oh my God. Look how gorgeous. And it's got the deckled edges. Beautiful. I don't know what it's about, but the cover said, buy me. And so I did. Oh, and for my classics, I have Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the Illustrated Adventures. So it says the Illustrated Adventures of Sherlock Holmes collects 12 stories that Arthur Conan Doyle himself selected as the best adventures of the great detective. Each tale is illustrated vividly with vintage artwork. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Look at the inside. Isn't that lovely? Wow. So I'm excited. I never read any of Sherlock Holmes' stories, but they are on my book list of 100 greatest books ever written. Easton Press list is what I'm going off of, so this will be another check mark off that list. So there you have it. That was all the books I read in May and my June TBR as it stands so far. So thank you so much for joining me, and happy reading. Bye.